Hey, multimedia, it's Mr. Campbell, and I'm going to teach you today how to combine this urban scene. I think it's pretty sure it's Seattle. It looks like the Space Needle, unless it's not. Who knows? I've never actually been there. So if we go to this document, we're going to take this giraffe and put it in the scene. And we're going to do this through a series of things, including the Select and Mask tool, which is in the Select menu. We're also going to use a layer effect called Curves, which is going to unify the picture through color. We're going to add a layer style, which is at the bottom of the layer panel. And so we take this and we wind up with this eventually. So we take the two pieces. Notice we've got a shadow added in at the bottom, and that's a little trick that I use using some distortions. And so that's what we see when we're done. Let's see how it goes. So to start off with, we're going to go to the picture here. We're going to save both. So save as, always save as a Photoshop document first, just like this. That way you have layers and you can undo things and you have forever editable effects. Let's do the same thing here. So File, Save As, and save this as also as a Photoshop document. So that will maintain our layers. If you just save it as a JPEG or a PNG, you'll lose your layers. It's really a bummer. So the next thing I'm going to do in each one is I'm going to duplicate the background layer. Just in case I screw things up, I've got a backup copy to work with. Let's go ahead and save, or Control S. I use Control S a lot when things are going well and I'm happy with how it's going. I think I did save as. Let's just do save. There we go. Just save. And then this one also just save like this. Control S. All right, we're gonna get rid of the background on the giraffe. Now the easiest, bestest way to do this is use select, using select and mask, or Alt Control R. This is going to open up a separate dialog box that has some magic tools to make the job easier and better. So watch this. We're going to leave the main interface and go to the select and mask thing. Now, I've got this preset. When you open yours up, it's not going to show this red. Yours is going to show onion skin. And the much more effective method is to do overlay, because this way you can see what you selected, what you have not selected. Now, we're going to unselect stuff, so we're going to actually select the things we don't want and reverse it later. So we're going to take this quick selection tool, make sure it's set to plus. I can change the brush size right here and make it the size I need. I actually use the bracket keys next to the P key on the keyboard, because that way it's quicker for me. So I'm going to do this, and you'll notice I missed the horns there, so I wanted to get the horns on top of the giraffe. I got the face unselected, so it's not perfect, and it does require some finesse to make it right. Now you can see what I've got, what I haven't got. My goal is to get the entire giraffe red, which will actually be unselected. So we're going to come around to that in a minute. So let's come back into here. Let's get my select and mask tool, and I'm going to subtract from selection. I'm going to get the size of my brush shrunk down a little bit to fit the situation. Okay. So great, that's pretty good. And if you click somewhere, usually it figures out what you want. So let's get that ear. And that's pretty good, I guess. I'm going to use the space bar to move across the picture, and I can see close up what I've missed and what I haven't missed. So I'm working through the picture. And it's an imperfect process. There are other tools you can use up here. There's the lasso tool. There's the brush tool. So if we use the brush, it just selects only what I paint. And I want something smarter than that. I like this quick select tool, because quick select tool is a smart tool and it seems to know what you want. It's not always perfect, but it does pretty good. So let's get the rest of that hoof down there and this hoof over here. But we've got this section between that we want to get rid of. So I'm going to use either plus or minus, as the case may be. In this case, I'm adding, and that just kind of got worse, didn't it? Right? But if I just work through this, eventually it gets better. So let's carefully, slowly, one thing at a time. Sometimes I'll do one click at a time, and that seems to have done a reasonably good job. And let's add to here. So just want to get the whole thing. And the tail is going to be an issue of its own, because the tail gets narrow. It's really not that easy to select. But there's a special part of the quick selection, select and mask process that makes that real easy. So let's zoom out. And notice the tail. Let's just zoom in on that area. All right, a tail. There's this tool here called Refine Edge Brush tool. And what that does is it identifies what you want to keep. So I'm going to start with the stuff I want to keep here. And I think I'm actually subtracting here. So maybe I want to do this one. Let's see. All right. So I'm using the plus, and all it's doing is it's noticing what the area that I want to keep is, and it's identifying things to stay with. So I'm just kind of brushing over that. And it's not perfect. And I can change the view of this to see what works. Let's try marching ants, for example. Now the marching ants part tells me I missed a bunch of the selection. So I want to add to that selection. Let's try, it's got edge detection. Let's increase the radius maybe. I'm not really sure what that does. There's other ways to view this. Overlay is what we've been using. And so for this, I could use this, just the brush. And you do sort of have to be careful with that because it's not a smart tool. You can be smart and still use it. So, oh, there we go. So it's extending from what I selected and adding on the hair. So this is designed to select people's hair when you're selecting a face. So there's the deal. And I'm going to click OK now. And this is the original copy here. I want to reverse that. So if I click on this, I'm not sure where it is in the menus up here, but I can do, there's a Control I. Let's see if I can find where it is. Let's see, type. I don't know. But anyways, Control I, when I do this, is going to flip that mask. So I've got the giraffe now. So I like this. I don't actually need this original layer, so you can hide that one. And all I want is this picture. I'm going to add a new layer. Actually, before we do that too much further, I want to demonstrate the idea of a linked embedded file. So if I go back to this picture here, which is saved as a Photoshop document, and I use File, and I find Place Linked. Now what Place Linked means is when you place a linked file, all changes in the linked file will be changed in the file you placed it in. So when I add the giraffe here, okay, it's like, isn't that the Photoshop document? Well, go back to the Photoshop document. Let's save this. Press Enter to accept the placement. Go back to here and save. So Control S. Now when I go back to here, it's lost the background. So what that means is everything I save as a change in the original document is going to show up here as well. So to demonstrate that, we're going to go back into here. We're going to add a new layer to make a shadow on. So here's new layer. You can also just say layer new layer like that. Okay, I'm going to call this the shadow layer. And I'm going to go and I'm going to do select and load selection. So load selection is going to look for anything that was recent. It's got the shadow transparency, which, let's see, actually I want to go to the last, sorry, that's not going to work. I got to click on this mask. So selecting that mask, if I choose load selection now, it's going to see the background copy mask. So there's the selection of just the giraffe. Now we're going to turn this into a shadow. So let's hide that layer so we've got nothing. And now with the black color as our main color here, we can choose Edit and Fill or Shift F5. So I got that filled up with the foreground color, and I got this. All right. So I want that shadow to be underneath and starting at the feet. So I'm going to use the Edit menu. I'm going to find the Free Transform tool or Control T, which is what I always use. And there's right here, you can't really see it on the video probably, but there's a pivot point right there. I call it a pivot point, a center of origin. So if I take this and I'm on the background layer, I can tell because this is selected over here, and I'm just going to drop this down so it looks like it's a shadow on the ground. Or in this case, it'll be in the water. So if I enter, and go back and save, and go back to here, I've got that shadow. It's a little bit intense, it's a little bit harsh. So make sure it's beneath, and I can take that layer and reduce the opacity, just like that. About 70% usually works pretty good. So save it again, go back here, and now it looks a lot better. A lot better. Now I want to do a couple things to make the giraffe stand up off the background a little bit. So but I also want to make sure that the giraffe doesn't appear to have been copied and pasted in there, which is essentially what we did. So to do that, I'm going to take this layer and I'm going to add an adjustment layer on top. So the adjustment layer we're going to add in here is called Curves. There it is, Curves. And what Curves allows me to do is to make some subtle changes to make the giraffe appear like they were there the whole time. Okay, so I go like this and I drag this up and they're sort of unifying and it's this adjustment layer is on top of all my other layers, so it unifies them through color. So if I do this, they all get the same treatment. That makes them look like they're more close to the same thing because they share some similar hues in color. Now to make that stand off just a bit more, I'm going to do one more thing, and then we're going to wrap it up. Let's choose the giraffe layer, and let's go to FX. Now this one we got to be real subtle. If we overdo this, it's going to oversell the effect, and we're going to look fake again. So let's go back to outer glow, and outer glow is an adjustable effect. So we're going to set this to normal on the blend mode. We'll talk about blend modes as you get more used to Photoshop. Let's adjust the opacity. What this is doing is it's adding a color. There we go. So something like that. So that's way too much, right? You want to drag that down and just hint at it. So if we've got this, right, more spread, less spread. So if we choose this but reduce the spread, it's a little bit more subtle maybe. And there's ways you could change that up a little bit, but this is always editable. You can always open this up and change it. So that looks pretty good. So that's how it works. Make sure, of course, that you file save as a Photoshop document, which I already did, and it's going to have my files, my layers in here. So when you save as a Photoshop document, you can save your layers and your effects, and always come back and edit everything, including your layers, your layer effects, and your FX, your layer styles. So this has a layer style right here. This is the outer glow. I've got my layer with my giraffe on it, and I've got the adjustment layer, which is my curves adjustment. So when you're done, of course, you can go to the search menu and find the snipping tool. And the snipping tool is outside of Photoshop. And what it allows me to do is take a snip like this, and we want to get the picture and the layer panel, just like this. So if I get the picture and layer panel, I can file save as this to a Photoshop document, or excuse me, to a PNG document, and I can then place that in Drive. Now make sure you back up all your work to Drive, turn it in on Classroom, and also take the time to embed this in your Bulb app document for the portfolio for this unit. So that's how it works. I'll talk to you soon. Have fun.